Hi guys, how's it going? Jeffrey here from Gorgeous Clinic and welcome back to another video. Today we'll be talking to you about the second commonest skin disease that we see in a skin clinic. And what is that skin disease? That skin disease is called psoriasis and it's spelled P-S-O-R-I-A-S-I-S. Psoriasis. In case you guys are tuning in, I hope you have the patience to bear with us because today's video is going to be a little bit long, but I promise you it's going to be worth it because it will give you information and the tools that you need to fight or to treat your psoriasis. Now today, as you watch this video, we'll be taking you through the various aspects of psoriasis. We'll be talking about who gets it, what can make it get worse, how does it affect the skin, and what can you do about it, what can you do to treat the condition. And in the next video, we'll be talking about other aspects of psoriasis, such as what does it do to your joints, or how does it change your nails, and what can you do about it to treat it. So without further ado, let's get kicking and let's start talking about all things psoriasis today. So psoriasis is a polygenic condition. It affects the skin primarily over what we call the dorsal aspect of the skin. What that means is it tends to affect the elbows, the knees, the backs, and it can also affect the scalp. What happens in psoriasis is skin tends to heap up on one layer after the other because antibodies are formed that interact with your skin in specific areas that causes it to pile up on each other, and that causes the skin to become thick, red and itchy. So all these sites that get affected have this silvery yellowish scale that piles up and becomes thick. You can see that on the scalp, like we mentioned. You can see that on the elbows, you can see that on the knees. As well as that, you can also sometimes get it on the reverse, and in this case we call it inverse psoriasis, where you get it on the skin folds like the elbow creases, behind the knee, or you can get it in your groin, in your armpits. So those areas can also have the other type of psoriasis called inverse psoriasis. In that case, skin is also red, but it doesn't get as thick because those areas are moist, so you don't get as much scale. It's mainly redness. Now, what makes psoriasis worse, or what triggers psoriasis, and can you do anything to avoid it? Well, yes and no. As we mentioned before, psoriasis is a polygenic condition. So something that is a polygenic condition means there are multiple defective genes that cause a disease process. So you can't do anything to change your genes at the moment. So there is a tendency for you to possibly inherit it if any of your parents, grandparents or relatives have it, and the same way your children may also inherit the condition, possibly. But there are other things that you can avoid. Take for example stress. Living a highly stressful lifestyle can make psoriasis a lot worse, just like it does with eczema. So you do well to exercise, de-stress, or vent your stress out, or live a less stressful life where possible, and stuff like that really goes a long way in helping make your psoriasis better or reduce the flare-ups of your psoriasis. Another thing that can possibly trigger that can be avoided are medications. And what are they? Two common medications that we see in our practice that can sometimes trigger psoriasis is something called beta blockers. What's an example of a beta blocker? They are all blood pressure controlling medications in this group, and the examples are such as metoprolol, bisoprolol, carvedilol. So drugs like that can make psoriasis worse. And also there's a mood stabilizer medication that people take for bipolar disorders, such as the drug called lithium. So lithium is a drug that can also make psoriasis worse. So if you're on any of these drugs, do seek your doctor out and talk about other alternatives that you can use to control, for example, your blood pressure or for your mood disorder, so that you don't trigger or worsen your psoriasis. Those are the things you can control and avoid. Of course, there's one more trigger that's important to know, and that is infections. What sort of infections? Commonly, throat infections caused by strep pharyngitis, caused by streptococcal bacteria. The other one is urinary tract infections. These two infections can potentially worsen your psoriasis. So in the event of any of these infections, get them treated early, sort them out so that your psoriasis gets good control and doesn't get worse because of the conditions involved. If you have any of those symptoms that we described, or the lesions that badly affect the scalp, or they affect the elbows and knees, and it's unsightly and it's very flaky all the time, and the flakes fall onto your clothes and it's unsightly, it causes people to stigmatize you, or it causes people to avoid you. What can you do about it? You can improve the appearance, you can make it a lot better, you can even sometimes normalize it. what are the options that you've got to treat psoriasis? Well, in its mildest form, meaning to say if it involves less than 10% of your body surface area. Normally, how we judge how bad a psoriasis is by looking at the palm size. Each palm size is approximately 1% of the body surface area. If you have more than 10 of those palm size areas, then we have to use a different treatment. But if it's less than 10 palm sizes, the best or simplest treatment you can do is to use creams that contain, the doctor might prescribe you creams that contain the following. They might contain a vitamin D analog, and that's called calcipotriol. They may contain a topical steroid. Or if you are steroid averse or you are worried about steroid use, the doctor can also give you a calcineurin inhibitor, just like tacrolimus. So those options are useful for the treatment of psoriasis that is in limited areas. But in areas like, let's say there's a lot of flakes and they're very thick and it keeps flaking off the top of your shoulders on your clothes, right? So that's a concern. So how do you take care of the flakes? How do you reduce the flakes? Let's say take for example the scalp. One thing we can do besides the use of these creams is the use of what we call keratolytic agents, or basically agents which remove scale. So we can use salicylic acid, we can use urea, and those agents can be used to actually descale the scalp. You can also use tar-based products. Take for example polytar shampoo, sabitar shampoo, stuff like that is good for descaling the scalp. So besides using salicylic acid, tar-based shampoos and creams, as well as steroid and vitamin D analogs, the other option would be to use something called local or focal application of something called narrow band ultraviolet B light. There are some hand pieces where you can use that applies UVB light directly onto the affected skin, and that can also help to normalize the skin. So some skin specialist clinics might carry that, so that can be a helpful option to consider as well. So with that, we complete our talk about the various treatment options that are there for you to consider if you're looking for treatment to treat your psoriasis. With that, that ends today's video, and I hope you find today's video useful and you can look up a bunch of information that may help you in your journey to treat or fight psoriasis. So in the next video, we'll be talking to you about how psoriasis affects the joints, and in a subsequent video, we'll also talk to you shortly about how it affects the nails and what can you do about it. So with that, I wish you guys a good day, and I hope you guys stay well, stay healthy, and keep safe.